Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael. Today I'm going to share with you my recipe on how to make a strawberry rhubarb muffin. These are really tasty and delicious, and with just a few ingredients, these come together really quickly. So I've got a 12 position muffin pan here, and I've got the little parchment paper linings in these. You can definitely, if you don't have the parchment paper, you can put a little bit of grease in those and lightly grease those with some butter, and that would work really well if you don't have the papers. But I've got these lined with the 12, and we're going to set that to the side and get ready started with our rhubarb and our strawberries. I went on and already cut up my rhubarb, and this is 1 cup or about 130 grams of rhubarb, and I've got it cut in fairly small pieces here because this is going into muffins, so you don't want really big pieces in that. So these will cook down nicely and be really tasty in those muffins. I've got 1 cup of strawberries, so that's about 130 grams of those, and I've already capped those. All right, so I've got my strawberries here washed and capped, and we're going to go ahead and cut those. I'm going to cut those into about the same size pieces as I did my rhubarb. That way we'll get nice little bits in our pieces when we bite into those. So I'm just going to continue to cut these up, and just want, relatively small pieces like that. If you want to cut them a little bit smaller, you can. If you get them really too small, they might cook down to nothing where you didn't see them in there. So I've got some little nice sized pieces in that. I'm going to put those in with my rhubarb and continue cutting the rest of my strawberries. All right, so I got all my strawberries cut up now, and I'm going to go ahead and put those in with my rhubarb. Now that we've got our strawberries and our rhubarb prepared, I've got some all-purpose flour here, and I got a little bit over a tablespoon here. I'm going to put that over the top of these, and what that's going to do is, if you don't do that, it has a tendency for the berries and the rhubarb to sink to the bottom of your muffins, and you don't want that. You want those to be evenly distributed throughout, and putting that flour on the outside of those will keep them immersed in there so that they stay all the way through your muffins. So I'm going to put just a little bit of that in there over the top. I'm going to take a spatula and just give that a stir around to kind of get that coating on all of that. All right, now that I've got my strawberries and my rhubarb covered, I'm going to set that to the side, and I've got 1 stick of butter, that's 113 grams, and I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the microwave, and I'm going to use my little paper trick here on the top of it because I don't want that splattering all in my microwave. So just put that over the top of the butter, and it will keep it from splattering. If it has a tendency to want to try to do that, I'm going to melt this, and I'll come back and we'll start working on our dry ingredients. All right, so I've got my butter melted now, and I've got my oven preheating to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's 190 degrees Celsius, and let's get started working on our dry ingredients. So I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour, or that's 240 grams. I've got 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, and we'll take a little whisk and just whisk all that together to get that all combined. All right, I've got that all mixed together now. I'm going to set that aside, and let's work on our wet ingredients now. All right, so I've got my butter here now, and I'm going to put that into this bowl. I've got 2/3 of a cup of sugar, or that's 135 grams. Now I've got 2 room temperature eggs, and I'm going to break those individually because I don't want any of the eggshells in my batter, and it could possibly take a chance of doing that. Or you could get some bad eggs, and you definitely don't want those in there to ruin whatever you've already got put together. So I don't have any shells in that. That looks like that's a good egg, so I'll put that in with my other ingredients. And I'll do the same with my other egg. All right, I've got 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm going to put that in my mixture. And this is my homemade vanilla. If you've never made it before, I'll put a link in the description box below. You can check out that video on how to make it. I've got a half a cup or 120 grams of sour cream. And you can also use Greek yogurt if you don't have the sour cream. I've got a 1/4 cup of milk, or that's 60 milliliters. And with that, I'm just going to give everything a good mix through. All right, we've got everything ready to go now. Let's put this together. So let's add our strawberries and our rhubarb into our flour and our other dry ingredients. And I'm just going to give that a little bit of a toss through in there. Now we're going to add our wet ingredients. Now that I've got everything combined like that, we do not want to overmix this. We just want to make sure this gets combined. If you start to really overmix it, you could activate that gluten and you would get really tough and dense muffins, and we don't want those. So just fold everything together until we don't see any of that dry anymore. All right, I've got my ingredients combined together now. Let's get our muffin tin back over here, and I've got a ice cream scoop. If you don't have one of these, you can definitely just use a spoon, but this makes it so much easier if you've got one of these, and we'll fill these up about 3/4 of the way full. I've got my batter in my pan now, and I'm ready to put on the final touch of that, and that's just a little bit of turbinado sugar, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top of those. This will be a nice A little added treat for these. Add a little bit more sweetness to them. All right, my muffins are now ready to go into the preheated oven. I'm going to cook those in about the lower third rack of the oven for about 18 to 22 minutes. You'll be able to tell when they're done when you can stick a toothpick in them and it comes out clean. I've got just a little bit of my batter left. I'm going to have a few more than my 12 got out here, and I'll let you know how many it turns out once we get these cooked. I'll be back and we'll see what these look like. I am back, and I wanted to show you my strawberry rhubarb muffins, what they look like. I was able to get 14 out of that. So depending on how high you fill your paper cups, you could get a little bit less, a little bit more. So definitely I fill mine up about 3/4, and sometimes I fill it up full. You can see if you fill it up to the top, what it's going to do is going to come up over the top, which is nice if you like those really domed muffins. And then this is a normal 3/4 one here, so you'll get just a little bit of a rise on the top of those. So I'm going to cut into one of these and show you what the inside of these look like. These smell absolutely delicious. I'm going to take this paper off now. Now that I've got that paper off, let's cut into one of these and see what they look like. There we go. We've got some of that nice rhubarb there on the bottom. And let's give this a taste test and see what these taste like. Absolutely delicious. That strawberry's got that really nice sweetness to it, and that rhubarb got that little bit of tartness to it. Good combination of that. We've got a good amount of sugar on that. I'll open up one of these so you can see all the way through it. Really nice texture, really smooth. Let's give this another try. This is a winner. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of these other 2 videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment, and I want to hear how your strawberry rhubarb muffins turned out. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.